What's the fastest you've ever quit a job and why? I showed up for the first day ready to start a sales job. I'd been hired with some stubble, but not yet a full beard the month prior. I thought nothing of it. The beard was neatly kept and short. The hiring manager pulled me aside after the first hour of onboarding right as I started filling out the new hire paperwork. The boss started, "We have a challenge today, oh boy." Already with the corporate speak. He told me that this was a clean-shaven outfit, and that I was to please return home and shave. I went home, opened a beer and sat on my porch thinking of my next move. After an hour or so, I got a text asking if I'd be back. I replied by sending a pic of the company's ad in the local paper looking for new representatives. The person in the ad had a beard. I never went back. I quit a temp job after less than half a day because they told me I would have to hold paychecks for employees who didn't return company property. When I told them that was illegal and showed them the law, they said I had to do it anyway, so I quit and went back on unemployment for a few more weeks until I found a real job. Not me, but my old master sergeant from the Marines. He retired as a master sergeant who used to be a recon sniper, then instructor for a million different weapons. His first job was at a shooting range. They stuck him behind the register the first day. He said, "I have 23 years of instruction experience, put me on the range," so they did. The first thing he witnessed was an elderly lady in her 50s shooting a .44 Mac. She's holding it improperly, and it looks like she is struggling in every facet. She was shooting it because her husband got a new job where he isn't home as often. They live in a rough area, and he wants her to learn how to shoot it. He walks up to her and starts to give her instruction on how to shoot it more effectively and safely. The other instructors walk up to him, pull him to the side, and tell him that if she wants instruction, she has to pay for it. He freaks and yells, "So you're gonna let her be a potential hazard to herself and others on the range because you want money," and quit on the spot. I once went to a day one orientation for an office job, where they told us we had to supply a laptop, monitor and headset for their office environment. I told them it's normal for the employer to supply these devices and it should have been made clear in the interview process this was on employees. I walked out, never looked back. The boss of a trucking company was a complete asshole. I was a teenager and supposed to be an assistant around the shop. He had me doing ridiculous shit, like cleaning his personal pickup truck and scrubbing the disgusting bathroom with paper towels. All the while he called me a dumpo-lack constantly, even though I'm not Polish. What sealed the deal is when in his office he told me to be grateful for the opportunity and that he could have me sucking his big dick. I left immediately after at lunchtime, about 3 hours through the day. I had to go back to grab my check the next day and he has the nerve to say, "What's the matter? So you don't like working for me?" I'm not that bad, people have it worse. I didn't even answer, just grabbed the check and left. I later heard he got sued by a lady in finance and lost the company. Tar roofing. 1 week. Each day I worked I gained a ½ inch in height from the roofing tar. My boots were like 15 pounds each by Friday, and I ruined all my pants and shirts. The Hispanic guys never got a drop of tar on them or their tools. Cheers to them for knowing what to do, and doing it so well. I just couldn't get the groove of it, and I wasn't cut out to be on hot roofs on the most brutal humid days of the year. Best Buy, before shift even began. Got back from a summer away. Got hired at a local Best Buy. They asked when I could start, told them any day except the coming Tuesday as I had a pre-existing ticketed event which they already said was no issue in the interview. Next day get emailed schedule, a single shift. On the one Tuesday evening I was assured I'd be off. Planned to call after class, but as I walked out my phone rang. My old boss from a few years ago at a GameStop offered me my old job so he wouldn't have to train someone because he was lazy. Told him I could start Wednesday, he agreed. I called Best Buy and told them to suck a big dick. I remember the manager saying, "Don't be so rash, do you really want to burn this bridge?" I said yes, and hung up. 2 hours. Got a job in a startup bioresearch lab after college because I had a lot of training and experience in certain equipment and procedures. Within an hour, saw the boss publicly humiliate someone else for reporting that they messed up a particular run. Really not a big deal, maybe an hour gone and $10 worth of reagents at the time. You really don't want people hiding oopsies from you in research studies with many and complex procedures protocols. Then I saw that we were fast running out of a desiccating, drying agent and that we'd have to slow down or stop until more came. Boss said nah, just reuse it. Tried to object but he jammed his finger into my chest and told me that as the FNG he owned my ass. I said okay and quit. That was nearly 20 years ago. I ended up tutoring college kids to save up for grad school. 1.5 days I was beyond desperate for money and I took a job in telemarketing. I could barely scrape together the gas money to drive there and the bills were piling up. The first day was listening to calls so I just sat there. The second day I had MR. Selling King behind me listening to calls as I made them. He kept yelling at me to be pushy and obnoxious when people would be polite and kind when asking me to please never call again. I excused myself to go take a leak and just drove away. I'm happy that I turned things around. I have a job I love and make a decent living with a good company. I needed that low point to motivate me. I was freshly released from incarceration back in 2007 and went to an open interview I saw advertised as I was kinda desperate to find work. Turns out it was for selling Cutco knives. I was too polite to leave once I knew. I got an offer but immediately turned it down. I was desperate, but not that desperate. Plus, who the duck wants a 6'3" tattooed ex-con with prominent facial scars showing up at their house with a fuckload knives? 14 hours before my job actually began. So I was working with the army in border control and the procedure was that you can go for a couple of months with one unit, which will go home and another takes over the station. You could also decide to stay for a second rotation with the new command. I had built up a really good and professional work with my commanding officers by then, which worked perfectly for everyone involved. Work was done, all polite, no yelling or rank pulling. 24 hours before the rotation, the new commander, let's call him Captain Swipe, storms in and starts swinging his big dig around. I was up for about 30 plus hours then with all the logistics of change of command so I wasn't exactly in a great mood. He proceeds to order me around and just being a brick for the sake of it, nagging on tiny details, telling me that the next months won't be pleasant for me. So I look him in the eye and tell him that I really don't think so, as I withdraw my request for the second rotation immediately. Good luck finding someone else on such a short notice. On top of that, a close friend did the same thing so they were now missing 2 valuable assets within hours just because of one asshole. He started yelling that I can't and that they will sue me, yada yada. Packed my bag and left. Never heard from him again. Lost a bit of good money but got paid in Captain Swipe's stupid face as we rolled out the building. Good times. Would do it again. Not me, but a girlfriend. She got a job in finance at a car dealership. She did the onboarding, went to her desk, then headed for the supply closet to get some basic supplies. As she walked past her boss's desk he screamed, "Are you taking a f-king break already, Dart?" She just turned around, grabbed her stuff and went home. Was there about 4 hours. I quit what was a pretty simple warehouse job because there was no training. I had to keep racks stocked for people packing boxes. Cool. Easy. Where do I get the stuff from? No one would show me. So these packers are on the other side banging the racks with their ducking sticks to let me know they need protein powder, but there's no one to tell me where I can find protein powder. It was frustrating and it wasn't the job I was hired to do. My friend and I both were hired for a different job there, but it turns out there was only one opening. I left at lunch on the first day. 4 hours. I got a job at a propane bottling facility. I had painting experience, so they told me I was going to be working in the paint shop. The room has a hole in one wall where the empty, used tanks are coming through suspended by hooks on this automatic rail system. They go past where I'm standing, through a paint booth and then out through a hole on the other wall that led straight to a kiln to bake the paint on. I'm supposed to put plastic baggies on the tank nozzles so they don't get painted and also remove the tanks from the line if they have too much corrosion. The tanks are going by at like hundreds per minute and the room is broiling since there is a hole that leads directly to the kiln. Break time comes and the line stops. I go to leave and the guy instructing me is like, no, break time is the only time the line stops and it's the only time we get to clean the paint nozzles. After talking to the guy some more, he's telling me about all the bladder infections he's had because he never get a chance to use the bathroom. At lunchtime I went to my car and took off, never even went back for my paycheck. Interviewed with a long haul company, was told I would be home every weekend as my routes were to neighboring states. Got an offer, took a drug test, went to training and signed the new hire paperwork. Got told to show up the next day to begin our first team drive as I was now officially an employee. I asked why we didn't discuss home time schedules and training and the guy asked what I was expecting. He laughed when I told him what the interviewer told me and said I'd be lucky to be one day out of every 3-6 weeks because we have multiple stops all over the country, return to base and immediately head out again. So I told him, and every other member of management in the room, that they ducking lied to me, and if they lied about that what else are they lying about? Get your sheet in order, shred my paperwork and never expect to hear from me again. There were also other new hires in the room that overheard it all and started looking at management with wide eyes as I walked out. I got one of those knife salesman jobs. During the interview we were told to take notes. After the interview the interviewer told me to stay after the group left. He told me he liked me and he was going to hire me but that I shouldn't be on my phone during the interview, that he saw me in the Zoom camera looking down. I was taking notes the whole time. I showed him my notes and told him I quit. I could see the micromanaging in his teeth. Plus I would have never made sales in that job. I got a temp job in college at a beer warehouse helping to pick orders before the 4th of July. Quit after one day. The warehouse had no AC and it was June in North Texas, so it was about 130 F in the warehouse and they wanted us to move so fast picking orders they accepted us to jog with our pallet jacks. On top of that, whenever someone dropped beer and the bottles broke we were told to just keep going and not clean up, so as you were jogging with a pallet jack in the insufferable heat every 10 or 15 feet there would be super slippery puddles filled with broken glass to cut you up if you fell. Absolutely not worth the $6.25 an hour in any way. In college I had an opportunity to work at the local movie theater in a rural college town. The owner, Frances, was known to be a gruff and rude woman. I began training concessions at the movie theater after being hired on, and it was pretty mundane. During that time, I was simultaneously offered a job as barista at a local coffee shop. The manager chef of the cafe was also named Francis. While speaking to Chef Francis, I mentioned that I was already training at the movie theater. Being a small town where everyone knows everyone, Chef Francis proceeds to say to me, "If you're going to work for a bitch named Francis, you might as well work for me." Not only was that statement hilarious to me, I liked her vibe, plus tips were better. So I immediately quit during my next training day at the movie theater and started working at the coffee shop. Worked at Pizza Hell, let's call it. My boss kept joints and wine bottles in her office and would go off to get high all the time. I can live with that at a food service job, TBH. But on my second day, after the girl training me left for 2 hours to get drunk with my other co-worker because she learned that her dad was arrested again or something, I asked my manager how to select a pizza with light sauce. She was so hissed and pointed at the easy sauce button and was all sassy. "See the easy sauce button?" I said, "I'm sorry, I didn't know." She goes, "You know everything else. How come you don't know this?" I'm like, still appalled by that. I was the only sober person in that place and according to her was a very quick learner and she got mad at me for not knowing one thing. I quit the job over email within 2 weeks of being hired after I had a panic attack over going back in and missing fireworks on the 4th of July. The location was later closed and I'm pretty sure she was out of a job after that. A week? If that. Spoke to management and higher ups in company. I was promised the head technician posting but was assigned to sales until we could fill the sales positions for back to school, PC shop. Students were walking out due to lack of any sort of cohesion. Scheduling, management and training were all terrible. I am not a salesman. I ducking hate it. I've been building custom systems and repairing GPU motherboards since the late 90s. After the 6th day there were only 2 part-time with me, at a post I had no interest in being. Manager came up and wanted me to pick up the slack since we lost a few. I had a word with him on my supposed break time. At which point he wanted me to go back into the store as there was a huge influx of customers. Again, ducking hate sales. I build repair. Answering the phone and standing there at a cash was not what I agreed to. So I left. I messed up and put in my notice before the next job was ready to start me, a whole thing but not important because it only delayed me a week. But since I didn't want to lose a week of pay I got a quick placement at a Johnson & Johnson fertilizer plant. I knew it was trash, didn't matter. I go into this place, in a Midwest town, and literally one guy can communicate with me and his English is extremely limited. The super didn't even have any English and he didn't give a duck, so I was the only English speaker on the floor. Okay, so whatever I'm doing basic sheet like stacking a pallet with product off the line and then an alarm goes off, the plant stops suddenly, and all the workers go off to somewhere and start coming back with whole as gas masks, not dust covers, IR-N95 masks. I mean like big WW2 looking things with chunky filters plugged into each side. No one says a thing, completely ignored. I'm grab the dude and go what the duck and he's like telling me to go get a mask and I try but there is no spare. So he's like shrug, what does he care? I get him to take me to the super and explain. Guy says the plant requires all exposed workers to run certain product with this mask. I'm like no shit, it's probably pretty poisonous if they have to do it. I just sit out for an hour and cleaned the break rooms and hallways until the mustard gas sheet was done, and after resheet I learned no one is permitted to leave by law until thieves showered on premises. The duck? There were 2 small changing rooms with tiny showers, enough for maybe 6 dudes to use. There were easily 40 guys crammed into the 2 areas, and I mean naked, big dicks touching, asses rubbing, all just doing what they do every day. So duck it, I get naked and try to keep my big dick and asshole to myself, change into my clean clothes. The agency did require I bring a spare change, and I walk on out and never came back. The temp lady called me and I asked her if she knew she was sending unsuspecting workers into a gay death trap, and I just took the rest of the week off until the start date at the plant I'd been hired. I got hired to be the guy holding a sign dressed as a Statue of Liberty for Liberty Tax outside in February. I was super hard up for money and needed any job I could get. They told at my interview on Thursday that I would start on Saturday. I was feeling down because I really didn't want to do that job. On the way home I put my last $10 in my gas tank and saw the convenience store was hiring. I interviewed with the manager as I filled out my application and started the next morning. It was closer to home and higher pay. I never showed up to Liberty Tax. Didn't make it through the training on the first day. It was a restaurant job and they started telling me to wear flair and gave me a script. Told the manager it was way too corporate and walked to a brewery down the street, started talking to the owners and got hired that night. Worked there for close to 2 years till I moved away.